On 22nd of May 1934, Ethel Major, a 35-year-old lorry driver from Kirkby-on-Bain in Lincolnshire, returned home from work and complained of sudden illness after eating corned beef in his front room. Within hours he was trembling, sweating heavily and suffering convulsions. 2 days later, at 10:40 p.m. on 24th May, he was dead. Dr. Frederick Smith, who attended him, initially certified the cause of death as an epileptic seizure. Arthur had reportedly suffered seizures in previous years. The burial was arranged quickly. Less than 90 minutes after Arthur's death, his wife, Ethel Major, summoned the undertaker and requested that the funeral proceed without delay. The following morning, she confirmed arrangements at the doctor's surgery and ensured that a notice Arthur had placed in the local newspaper disowning responsibility for her debts would not be printed. On 26 May 1934, the local coroner received an anonymous letter signed Fair Play. The letter drew attention to the recent death of a dog belonging to neighbour Herbert Maltby. The dog had reportedly died in convulsions on the same evening Arthur first fell ill. Inspector Dodson began inquiries. Witnesses stated that on the morning Arthur became unwell, Ethel Major had been seen in the garden carrying a plate. She scraped its contents onto the ground. Maltby's dog consumed the food. That evening, the animal developed violent symptoms and died overnight. The coroner halted Arthur Major's funeral shortly before it was due to proceed. A post-mortem examination was ordered. Arthur's organs were sent to London for forensic analysis by Dr. Gerald Rash Lynch, Home Office pathologist. Laboratory testing detected strychnine in every organ examined. Approximately 82 milligrams were present, nearly 3 times the amount generally considered fatal for an adult. Almost half was found in the stomach. Strychnine was also detected in the remains of Maltby's dog. With the medical evidence established, the initial diagnosis of epilepsy was overturned. Arthur Major had died of strychnine poisoning. The investigation passed to Scotland Yard. Detective Chief Inspector Hugh Young took charge. Attention focused on the Major household. Arthur and Ethel Major had been married since 1918. They had one son, Lawrence. Arthur was regarded locally as a reliable worker at the Gravel and Sand Company. In recent years, however, their marriage had deteriorated. Evidence emerged that Arthur had arranged to publish a notice stating that he would no longer be responsible for his wife's debts. The notice was scheduled to appear on 25 May 1934, one day after his death. The presence of strychnine required explanation. It was not commonly available in domestic settings, but was frequently used by gamekeepers for vermin control. Ethel's father, Tom Brown, was a gamekeeper living at Primrose Cottage in Roughton. Police now faced 2 central questions. How had the poison been administered, and who had access to it? The corned beef meal became the focal point. Arthur's son later told investigators that days before the illness, his mother had given him money to purchase a tin of corned beef. Ethel denied this, stating that she disliked corned beef and would not have bought it. Further, witnesses recalled that Arthur had recently begun storing his food separately on the top shelf of the pantry, apart from the food used by Ethel and Lawrence. The dog's death, the halted funeral, and the confirmed presence of strychnine transformed what had appeared to be a sudden medical event into a criminal inquiry. Suspicion now centred on the household itself. As the investigation developed, Scotland Yard examined the state of the Major marriage. Ethel Lily Brown had been born in August 1892 in rural Lincolnshire. In 1915, she gave birth to a daughter outside marriage, Oriel, who was raised as her parents' niece. In 1918, she married Arthur Major. Their son Lawrence was born soon after. By the early 1930s, tensions within the marriage had become visible. Neighbours reported arguments. In May 1934, a quarrel in the street escalated to physical confrontation. Ethel was seen tearing the mudguard from Arthur's bicycle. A brick was thrown during the dispute. Ethel had approached several local figures alleging that Arthur drank excessively and was conducting an affair. She showed letters that appeared to be written by a neighbour, Rose Kettleborough. The letters suggested intimacy and were signed with the surname Major, misspelled. When questioned, Rose Kettleborough denied writing them. The police found no direct evidence of an affair. 2 weeks before Arthur's death, Ethel visited a council inspector and asked whether she could be listed as tenant of their council house instead of her husband. She also consulted a solicitor regarding correspondence to Mrs. Kettleborough, written in Arthur's name, instructing that no further letters be sent. The investigation then turned to access to poison. At Primrose Cottage, Tom Brown kept strychnine in a locked box, used for vermin control. Brown stated that 2 keys had originally existed, but one had gone missing years earlier. During a search of Ethel Major's belongings, police discovered a small purse inside a suitcase. Wrapped in paper marked Mother's Penny was a penny and a key. Inspector Young tested the key at Primrose Cottage. It opened the poison box. This discovery established physical access to strychnine. Ethel denied knowledge of the key's origin. She insisted she had never possessed poison and claimed she did not know her husband had died of strychnine. During questioning, she mentioned strychnine before police disclosed the toxicology results. Later, it was established that her solicitor had informed her of the poison prior to formal interrogation. Further evidence emerged. Lawrence stated that after Arthur's death, his mother asked him to burn a piece of white paper. He was not told its contents. The pattern suggested preparation, the corned beef purchased days before the illness, the separate food storage, the missing key. The dead dog. On 9 July 1934, after 7 weeks of inquiry, Ethel Major was formally charged with the murder of her husband. She pleaded not guilty. Ethel Major's trial opened in October 1934 at the Lincoln Assizes before Mr. Justice Charles. The prosecution was led by Richard O'Sullivan, K.C. The defense was conducted by Norman Burkett, K.C. The Crown's case rested on circumstantial evidence supported by forensic confirmation. First, the presence of strychnine in Arthur's organs and in the dog's remains. Second, the key to the poison box found in Ethel's possession. Third, her alleged statement to Dr. George Armour. A man like him is not fit to live. I will do him in. The prosecution argued that Ethel had motive in the form of marital conflict, financial strain, and jealousy. Arthur's newspaper notice disowning her debts suggested impending separation. The defense challenged the reliability of witness statements and emphasized that suspicion alone could not prove administration of poison. Burkett highlighted that no witness had seen Ethel place poison in the food. He questioned the certainty of the handwriting evidence regarding the alleged love letters. Inspector Young's earlier belief that Ethel had incriminated herself by mentioning strychnine was weakened when it was shown she had prior knowledge of the toxicology findings. Nevertheless, the key evidence remained substantial. The poison was secured in a locked box. The missing key was found among Ethel's belongings. Arthur's food had been prepared within the household. The dog had consumed leftovers and died with identical symptoms. Ethel chose not to give evidence. After approximately 1 hour of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. When asked if she had anything to say, she declared, "I am innocent." Her appeal was dismissed in December 1934. A petition for reprieve gathered approximately 200 signatures, but was unsuccessful. On 19 December 1934, Ethel Major was executed at Hull Prison by Thomas Pierrepoint and his nephew Albert Pierrepoint. She was 42 years old. She was the only woman executed at Hull Prison and the first woman executed in England in 8 years. Arthur Major had already been buried in St. Mary's Churchyard in Kirkby-on-Bain. In the years that followed, Lawrence Major married and remained in Lincolnshire. Oriel, Ethel's daughter from her earlier relationship, married and died in 1980. It is unclear whether she was ever told that Ethel was her mother. The case left several unresolved questions. The authorship of the alleged love letters was never conclusively proven. The meaning of the anonymous letter referencing Mrs. B was never clarified. Whether Ethel fabricated the letters herself remains speculative. Legally, however, the evidence was judged sufficient. Access to poison, preparation of the fatal meal, and corroborating forensic findings formed a coherent narrative for the prosecution. The Ethel Major case reflects the evidentiary standards of 1930s England, where circumstantial chains, when supported by forensic science, could sustain a capital conviction. The official record closed in December 1934. The debate over motive, however, remains confined to interpretation rather than proof. In rural Lincolnshire, suspicion was transformed into verdict. Whether that verdict resolved every uncertainty is a question preserved in the historical record rather than the courtroom.